Hi, and welcome to Let's Get Distracted, episode 48. We're here to talk about stop overthinking and start living. And for that, we have Elena Sonnino joining us. Hi, Elena. So nice to have you back.
It's so great to be here, and congratulations, episode 48.
I know.
It's been amazing to watch this, but wow, 48, it's amazing.
I know. I'm going to be coming up on that first anniversary soon, which is totally crazy.
And think of what you've experienced in this last year. Talk about living.
Absolutely. So for all of you out there that are overthinking, we've got a lot of great tips to share with you tonight. But first, I'm Michelle Burke with Health and Taxes, coming to you live from Annapolis, Maryland. Many of you know that after 30 years as a CPA and a corporate tax accountant, I went out on my own last January and formed Health and Taxes. There are only two things certain in the world, death and taxes. I'm here to help you flip that to health and less taxes. On Sunday nights, I come to you live from my YouTube channel, Health and Taxes. Please like, subscribe, and support me. I'd appreciate it. So every Sunday night at 7:30, I come live to get you distracted, educate you about a little something. And tonight we're going to be talking about stop overthinking and start living. So with that, as you know, I'm so happy to have Elena here again. So let me tell you a little bit about Elena. Some of you probably know her because she's been on the show a couple times before. But Elena Sonnino is a Aliveness Coach, speaker, and a yoga teacher. What most people say about Elena is that she brings delightful sparks of energy to everything she does. Truth. Elena is on a mission to help you be the sunrise in your pocket. She believes that the only thing you need to be alive and thriving in the world is you, and that it is time to replace overwhelm, overthinking, and survival mode with aliveness as the metric for thriving and success. Elena helps individuals and groups take back and step into their aliveness by connecting to their most important relationship, the one with themselves, with each beat of the heart or ebb and flow of the breath. Her work moves you from beyond shoulds into delight, one day at a time. Elena has been featured by Rancho La Puerta Wellness Resort and Spa, Safe States Alliance, Four Seasons Hotel, Washington, D.C., Loudoun County Chamber of Commerce, Tiny Buddha, and the Chopra Center. You can learn more about Elena at her website, which I will post here in the comments in a little bit, or listen to her podcast, Sunrise in Your Pocket. So Elena, with that, tell our audience a little more about you and your story and how you came here, how you came to this.
Yes, absolutely. I was listening to that bio and I was like, yeah, that is me. That's fun. I think what's true about me and what got me here is that I, like so many of us, spend a lot of time in overthinking and what I call this survival mode, right? Survival mode to me is I would like to say recovering type A, but I'm not. That would be dishonest. I'm still type A, right? But we set goals, we go all in, and that's fabulous, right? There's a place for that. But the flip side of that is sometimes we find ourselves in these moments where we get that tunnel vision. And I like to think of it almost as bulldozing. And for me, that tunnel vision was particularly heightened in my early 20s. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. And I spent about 18 months in treatment, 6 months of chemo, followed by 5 months of remission. And then I was diagnosed. It had come back, it had recurred. And at that point, there was a bone marrow transplant, that my own cells, right? Really interesting things. But during those 18 months, I was totally numb to the experience. I never gave myself permission to feel fear, to feel sadness, to feel grief, to feel hope, right? I was just purely focused on survival mode. And I tell this story about a phone call that I got when I found out that I had recurred. That I remember it was an afternoon, I don't know if it was a Monday or Tuesday, but I was a preschool teacher at the time. And I was driving across the Key Bridge in DC into Virginia to go to my CAT scan at Arlington Hospital. And I remember bursting into tears. There was something that I knew. And then though, right, you show up for the CAT scan, you do the thing. I go home to my apartment, 1-bedroom apartment. I remember sitting in the bedroom and all of a sudden the phone is ringing and in through the front door, walks my ex-fiance. That's a story for another time. And it was timed, right, to be simultaneous. And I didn't get it at the moment, but I pick up the phone and it's my oncologist. And I don't remember exactly what Dr. Feigert said to me, but the message was, you've recurred. And at that point, my 1-bedroom apartment, that 1 bedroom became like a war room, right? Command central for all the phone calls, for all the things that had to get done. And not bad to want to survive, right? But there was so little feeling in that experience. I kind of shut everything down and just went into doing mode. And while that's a coping mechanism, it also kept me from really experiencing things. And there's been a lot of work and studies that show we have to give our bodies, we have to give our souls, we have to give our hearts, our energy and experience to release the stress, to release the experiences so that they don't get stuck in us.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was this first phone call that I remember thinking back to now, and wow, what an example of this huge thing that I just totally dug my heels in. Again, not bad, but what if there was another way, right? So I fast forward to many years later. I was a classroom teacher at the time. When in my early 20s, I wanted 2 things in my life. I wanted to be an elementary school teacher and I wanted to be a mom. Right. And at the time, after my transplant, all bets were off on being a mom. My body was fully not going to cooperate. And I did end up becoming a teacher, much to my oncologist's chagrin, because they were like, no, you can't do anything. I'm like, I'll go to grad school. And it just so happened that I ended up in a classroom right away in grad school. That's okay. I don't like to do things that they tell me I should or shouldn't do. It's not how I operate. So fast forward, I was then married and we were trying to have a baby and I couldn't. So we had gone through what was supposed to be the donor egg process. We had picked out our donor egg right through the binders. And it really were binders back then. This is 2004. And they were putting my body through all of the processes and the medicines as in the weeks prior to actually receiving this egg. And I had gone in, I was a classroom teacher at the time. I had gone into the genetics and infertility clinic. And then I, for the sonogram, for whatever they had me do that morning. And then I go to prep my classroom and the secretary calls and she's like, Elena, there's a phone call. It's your doctor. Okay, I was just there. Did I forget something? Apparently not. The doctor says to me, so I don't know how to tell you this, but you're 5 weeks pregnant. And I was like, what? And even, I'm not even sure I had the what feeling more than 10 seconds, because then I burst into tears, and these were not happy tears. At that point, I was mad because they had told me, well, because even if it was, right, it was never going to be viable, I had been told. I had been kind of brainwashed into this can't happen. And I believed the doctors. I don't know why, but I believed them because I liked them. They were good people. And the doctor said to me, look, you have 2 choices. You can grieve or you can celebrate until the day you can't. And that to me, I was like, option B.
Yeah.
And that was aliveness, because at that point, right, and it's not just good news, bad news. I allowed myself to feel the fear because I was afraid, right, to be present with all of the sensations. Right after school, I went home. I went to CVS. I was like, how am I going to tell my husband? So I went to CVS. I bought a pregnancy test, and I went to Hallmark next door, and I bought a journal so that I could start writing letters to this little embryo. And I did, right? And now she's 16 and a half. And I still read her the letters occasionally when she's mad at me. I pull them out like really good timing.
And you got the pregnancy test because you wanted to be sure?
Well, because I wanted to show, I was like, how am I going to tell
Your husband?
Now okay. Ex-husband? I was like, well, because I don't think he's going to believe me. It's part of it. So yeah, I mean, part of it I think was to validate. So overthinking, right? Catastrophizing, like this can't be true. And also to tell him. So I was like, I don't know how else to do that. And I think we must have taken a picture and sent it to my parents. I don't remember how I told my parents, but it was this distinct difference in my reaction, right? Yes, there was doing, but it came from a sense of being, of feeling my heartbeat, of feeling all the excitement and the fear, right? Because to me, they're not mutually exclusive. They can coexist at the same time. And that to me is, right, we spend so much time in overthinking. And the good news, bad news is that it's never going to go away.
True. But you have some tips in coping with that. And I love that your doctor gave you that choice and you allowed yourself to say, yes, I'll take B. I'll take B. I'm not going to go for A.
No, right. I mean, to me, it was like, well, no, that was immediate, my gut knew, right? Absolutely. I was going to celebrate. And that is, I think when I say that we're never going to stop overthinking, I don't know that we should stop overthinking. I think overthinking can give us information. It's what we do with the overthinking that I believe gets us into trouble, right? And keeps us stuck. So when I think about stopping overthinking, it's stopping the pattern, right? Stopping the rabbit hole that it takes us down. All the work that I do is to help women find their own clarity, create possibilities where there were just brick walls, right? And it's to be less reactive and to live with fewer shoulds and more delight. But to do that, we have to see where we are, whether you're on a map, like with Waze, right? You want to tell Waze or Uber back in the day when we could Uber. Uber needed to know where you were to get you where you wanted to go, right? And so that's, to me, this power of, and I have kind of 5 ways that I like to move out of overthinking and into really living, but it's about that place of noticing where you're in the past or in the present or in the land of expectations or shoulds and deciding to make a different choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know you have the acronym ALIVE, and that's, you just referred to your 5 ways of catching yourself or rethinking your overthinking. But tell us a little bit about ALIVE. We don't necessarily have time to go into all of it, but maybe you could give a few tips and tell us what the acronym means.
Yes. So if you think about the word alive, right? The A to me stands for allowing, right? So allowing yourself to feel, to be present, to feel the full range of emotions. Aliveness is a continuum of experiences, from intense on one side to intense on the other, and everything in between. And so to me, allowing is giving yourself permission to be present, right? Giving yourself permission to feel all the feels. You hear that expression, to notice. So one of the ways I love to invite people to do that is it's really easy to notice all the things that aren't working, right? But begin to notice what is working. Begin to just notice what's right around you. How do you feel? And so it really all does start with allowing. And you'll also notice everything is interdependent, right? So from A, we go to the L, right? And for me, the L is listening to your thoughts, listening to your body, to sensations and emotions, and listening to your intuition. And you're not necessarily going to do it all at once. Let's be clear, right? One of my favorite things, and you know and love this practice, one of my favorite ways to listen is a brain dump, right? If we're going to be overthinkers, let's honor the fact that we're overthinkers and take everything in our brain that's there in one moment and put it on paper so we don't have to carry it around. And then we can see it for what it is, right? So that's one way to practice listening. So we have the A, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say on the brain dump, I've got my little Thrive journal here for the brain dump, but it's just, you just allow yourself to just take some moment of time, define time, and just put all your thoughts on a page as they come. It doesn't, like you coach us, doesn't have to be complete sentences. It can be. It's just thoughts, to just allow yourself to put it on paper.
Yeah. And it's not about changing the thoughts. When we are practicing listening, we're just honoring what's there. We're not judging the thoughts. We're not censoring the thoughts. We're not trying to MacGyver the thoughts, right? Like fix them. But we're just really, and so it's both allowing and listening. A lot of these are very intertwined. So that's one of my favorite things, to listen. The other way that I love to listen is sometimes I'll just pause and ask my heart, right? What does it want me to know in any given moment? And there's always information there. It might not be like big neon flashing sign information, but if we just listen, we can reconnect to that relationship. So we've got allow, we have listen, then we have intention. And a lot of us are goal setters, right? I have goals. It's not that I don't have goals, but to me, the difference when we focus on intention is we focus on how we want to feel around something. And we are intentional then about cultivating that feeling. So whether it's how do I want to feel when I go to sleep tonight, or how do I want to feel at the end of, watching this conversation or participating in this conversation, or whatever it is, before a meal, before, a walk. But checking in with how do I want to feel, and giving yourself permission to feel that along the way, instead of just at the famed finish line, right? So allow, listen, intention, and then the value. Now, if you hang out with me for any length of time, we're likely to have a conversation about core values, which are, right? Which are the 3 to 5 things that make you uniquely you. And those come into value. But it's this idea of, what are you valuing? What are you spending your time, your energy, and your effort on? Because everything that we focus on is a value proposition, right? If you're thinking about one thing, you're not thinking about something else. And so I used to say to my daughter, and even when I was a classroom teacher, I would say this to my 3rd graders: how much energy do you want to give to thinking about that one thing, right? So, 3rd grade girl drama, teenage girl drama, whatever it is.
Right.
How far down the rabbit hole do you want to let that take you? Sometimes the answer is, actually, I just need to feel this way for a day, a week, or whatever. Okay. So then you're intentional about it, right? As opposed to, so it's an empowered valuing. And then we move to the E, embodiment, which is being the thing and letting the doing come from the being, which is hard for us to rewire because we're all so used to and so very good at doing. But when we focus first on, right, these practices of allowing, listening, intention, and then really discerning what it is you want to value, the being can dictate, it can guide the doing. And that's a really beautiful place to be. So for instance, one of my core values is delight. And I've noticed over the last year that expectations are my kryptonite, right? When I get into like the expectations of what I think something's going to look like or what it should look like, I go down a rabbit hole that's really hard to get myself out of. The thing that gets me out of it is curiosity and delight. And so a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point, I sat in my closet in the morning, right? I was getting ready and I was like, okay, delight. How am I going to cultivate delight today? And one of my favorite questions to tap into delight is, what would feel delicious today? And sometimes I put my hand over my heart and I just kind of ask that question. And the answer that I got was wearing my great grandmother's pearls, which I didn't wear them a lot really ever. I would wear them occasionally, but I definitely haven't worn them in the last year. And I remember my mom saying to me when I was younger, pearls are living, breathing things. You need to wear them for them to maintain their luster, their pearlness. And so to me, it was this beautiful reminder of like, tap into this this living thing that also has the energy of my great grandmother, right? That has so much sentimental value. And so my decision at that point was, I'm going to wear pearls every day for the next month. And I have, and it's kind of been, right? I mean, I literally, with yoga pants, whatever it is, I'm like, yes, I'm wearing pearls. So to me, it's that question of, right, it's a doing, but it came from a feeling. And that's what embodiment is to me, is allowing yourself to really tap into your senses. So which of those sticks out to you? Because I know you've played with this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think about. I know in the allowing, when the first time I heard that, I realized I never paused to allow and pause to make space to allow for more. I was just so busy with the doing, and it kind of goes into that value and intention. Like, am I spending my time on what I really value and what I really should be? And just, so the one thing to me is just the pausing, and two, then allowing and opening up space for the things that matter. Those really resonate with me.
Yeah, right. It's so interesting because we all talk about the things we want more of in our lives. And yet it's really hard to create space for those things if we're not decluttering some of the stuff that keeps us from those things, right? Whether those are shoulds, whether that's overthinking. I mean, overthinking to me shows up in so many different ways, right? It's analysis paralysis. It's right.
Right. I think a lot of us think overthinking is the analysis by paralysis, yes, but it's also a lot more.
It is a lot more. So how else? Let me ask you, how else do you find yourself in overthinking?
I think that I'll take just a situation, and if something didn't go right, I'll replay the situation multiple times in my head and think of different alternatives and how it could play out differently. And I spend a lot of time on that, when that's probably not the best use of my time. Maybe think, is there a lesson to be learned here? What is it? And move on, and not replay the conversation so much.
Our inner critic runs wild. I mean, it is, I think that expectations and our inner critic and judgments are the battery, the fuel that our overthinking runs on, right? It's all those little voices. The other, the second guessing. I could have said it this way. I could have said this. I could have done this, right? All of that second guessing. Another thing that I hear a lot about is the what ifs, right? Kind of playing out all the possible scenarios. I've noticed this, my parents are in their 70s, and it's been fascinating. My dad's a smart guy. He's a retired neurosurgeon. I'm noticing it in him now, this rehearsing everything. And there's a place for rehearsing, right? Visualizing can help us. It helps successful people do the things. But when we're doing it and we get stuck there and then we can't make a decision, that's where I think we get into trouble, right? The other thing is catastrophizing. So turning everything into the worst. I mean, this is, right? You get the text that says, please call me, or I get the text that says, please call me. And I'm like, oh, what's wrong? Did I do something? So it's the brain being the storyteller coupled with the inner critic who always has something to say. And we end up, and then we become very reactive.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a really interesting place to get ourselves out of.
Yeah.
It takes effort.
Absolutely. Elena, you're teaching us a lot, giving us a lot of tips here with Alive. And if this is resonating with our audience, I know that you're opening up your Thrive Circle again, something I did last year and I'm doing again because there's always room for more learning and practice. And so tell us a little bit about Thrive Circle.
I love the Thrive Circle. It is one of the things that just makes my heart explode. So the Thrive Circle is a 7-week community experience. It's hard to define, right, what it is, but it is really about you building these foundational elements of aliveness so that you can thrive. And why do you want to thrive, right? This is kind of a word, like, why is it important? Well, you can maybe set better boundaries. You learn to to name and then prioritize your needs and wants. And one of the things that we do in the Thrive Circle is that we spend time kind of thinking about what your core values are. And people are like, core values, that's not very interesting, except that it is. Because when you know what those 3 to 5 things are that make you uniquely you, they become your navigational tool. They become not just the roots that ground you, but then your compass for going out and being in the world. And then we create this very personalized roadmap that you then get to practice embodying out in the world. And we do this in a group setting, because it's one thing when I offer up a topic or a question or something, and then you interpret it in your own way. But then in the conversation that swirls, we learn from one another, and there's accountability and a consistency, because we can't wait to hear what somebody's experience was. And then there's reflecting back. And so it becomes this really beautiful, energetic, just community experience where the women in the group feel supported and nurtured and challenged, right? I challenge you occasionally.
Oh, quite a bit. But I will say, last year was the first time that you went virtual. It used to be a community in person, and I participated in that virtual, and yet I really did feel connected. I still feel connected to you and to the other people in the group. Although we've never met each other in person, it definitely still allows for a connection, which was really nice.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I really I build into the program, right? And even for somebody who's like, oh, but I'm an introvert, or I'm not really a group person. There was somebody who for years had been a one-on-one client and said to me, Ellen, I'm not a group person. She ended up participating in the Thrive Circle 3 times because of the group component, because there was always the same topic explored with different people is going to bring out different layers of it, right? So there's always more learning that can be done, but even just that idea of that accountability. And we spend a lot of time in breakout rooms and conversations so that you get to have conversations and interactions with people. So it's one of my very favorite things. It's a 7-week experience, and we begin on March 30th. And so this is the time for people that are thinking about it. And to me right now, it's also a really great reminder of, there's still so much uncertainty, and it's thinking about what is it that you want to bring forward, and those changes that you've been perhaps exploring or feeling stuck around. This is really the time to create those sustainable, because to me, it's all about sustainability. If you're only going to do it for 7 weeks, right? And we build on that over time. It doesn't all happen all at once.
Yeah. And you learn more. And so the more layers and things as you go. And if people sign up for the Thrive Circle, they also get this retreat that's coming up on the spring solstice. Tell us about that as well.
So if you register by this Friday, the 12th, you also get access to the Awaken Your Aliveness Spring Virtual Retreat. So this is, as you said, on the solstice weekend. It's Saturday the 20th, and it's a full day dedicated to filling your own cup, for choosing aliveness over stuckness. And we're going to spend a lot of time on figuring out what it is that fills your cup, what it is that makes you feel alive, and how to connect and tap into your inner teacher, the part of you that always knows what you need and what's best and is your North Star. So we have a special guest, Mina Fees, will be leading us through a workshop in the afternoon. And I always love treating my retreaters. So there's a box of goodies which is why registration's closing on Friday, so that everybody can get their box in time. That'll have some delicious goodies and things of all sorts. So I'm very excited about that day.
Well, I'm very excited to be doing it again. I'm looking forward to it. I encourage our listeners to go out and check it out. I will post your website in the comments after this as well. And Elena, as we wrap up here, any final words for our audience?
What I would say is perhaps just take a moment after you've listened and watched this and think about one thing that you really want to practice, whether it's that A, that L, that I, that V, that E, and give yourself an opportunity today, tonight, tomorrow to just experiment and to notice what that's like for you. And give yourself permission to just one letter at a time to connect to your aliveness.
I think that's great advice. And I think as you pause and take that moment and you get benefit out of it, encourage you, it starts becoming a practice, and it starts becoming something that you recognize and want and need. So so I encourage everybody to go out to the website, check out Thrive Circle, also check out the Sunrise in Your Pocket podcast. There's a lot of great information out there. And thank you, Elena, for joining us tonight. Thank you, audience, for joining us here. Please remember to subscribe and share this with your friends if you found value in this. And I will be back next Sunday at 7:30 Eastern Time with more Let's Get Distracted. So thank you and have a good night.